But to get home, Furiosa fought the world.
Written by Nick Lathoris and George Miller and directed by George Miller, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is quite the spectacle to behold. From the cinematography and the beautiful action, to the amazing and astounding acting, to the great chemistry between the actors and actresses, this movie all around was just really well done. Sure, I had my issues with it. There were quite a few issues that I had, but in this movie in particular, the issues that I had with it and the negatives that came with the movie didn't really have that big of an impact on the overall quality of the film. The overall quality of the film makes it a 4-star film. Honestly, the only reason that I don't give this movie 5 stars is because of the fact that, one, they broke it up into 5 different chapters, which is okay, but for this movie in particular, I feel like the whole 5-chapter thing did not really work. It felt like we were stopping and starting, if you will. We would go on a really big high and then hit with a really big low. Kind of killed the momentum and the drive of the movie at times. Another thing is within the first 45 minutes, we don't even really get introduced to Anya Taylor-Joy, who is the main person of the film, who is Furiosa. Sure, we get a younger version of Furiosa, and she did a phenomenal job. Honestly, she looks pretty close to how Anya Taylor-Joy looks with her facial features. But I would have preferred if there were maybe 15 to 20 minutes of that, and then we just got right to the point, as opposed to drawing that out, and then we took even longer to get to Anya Taylor-Joy's. I will say that one of the best castings of this movie, which this movie was very well cast all around, but one of the best castings of this movie was Chris Hemsworth as Dr. Dementis.
Get off from me. Here we have here.
First of all, I love Chris Hemsworth as an actor, but to see him do such a zany and out of this world kind of character the way he did was really good. He did a great job with this. He was one of the main driving forces that kept me invested in this movie, and there are quite a few things that kept me invested in this movie, but he was one of the main things just because he was so zany and out there. And I think that this is one of the most intense and wild and crazy roles that he's done. And like I said, great job.
Remember me?
I couldn't have thought of anybody better who could have done this role in particular. Another thing that just kind of seemed out of place in the movie and didn't really strike anything in me and just kind of seemed out of the blue and just there was a particular instance between Anya Taylor-Joy's character and Tom Burke's character. Tom Burke played Praetorian Jack, and then obviously in Mad Max Fury Road, Furiosa's character is a little bit more vocal, and you have Tom Hardy's character who isn't very vocal. But in this movie, they kind of had a parallel with it, and it was kind of reversed. Praetorian Jack was talking a lot to Furiosa, and Furiosa was very silent. So I like that there were a lot of parallels to Mad Max Fury Road in this prequel. One of the things that I can praise about this movie, but also is somewhat of a negative, is how the action looked. Now, in Mad Max Fury Road, they were actually in a real desert, they were in real cars, using all of this crazy stuff, so it looked so much more intense and felt so much more real. This movie, Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, you can plainly see that a lot of it is green screen. Now, that's not to say that this movie is completely bad, or it's just horrible, or it doesn't work for the movie, or it makes the movie look like crap. Like, it doesn't make the movie look like crap. It's just an observation. Just the fact that 10 years ago, the Mad Max Fury Road had such amazing cinematography, like through the roof cinematography. And years later, we have this prequel to this movie that is directly linked to this movie, and majority of it is on a green screen, and you can see that. It's not, when I say it's a negative, I don't mean that it is the worst thing in the world, and George Miller, you're terrible for using a green screen, what the hell? No, it was probably safer for everybody, so I can commend that. In order for this movie to be a 5-star movie for me, it would have that would have been it, to just make it in a real desert and have real cars and real explosions and everything like Mad Max Fury Road. But as I said, it was probably way safer for everybody involved, the cast, the crew, director, producers, everybody that was on set. It was probably way safer for them. All of that to say, yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. I just wish that certain things were a little bit different. But again, as I said earlier in the video, not a big issue, not a big issue with the overall quality of this film. I like that there were certain callbacks to certain characters from Mad Max Fury Road, and another thing in this movie is we see so many characters that we see in Mad Max Fury Road. So obviously you know that those characters in particular are not going to die in this movie. You see certain things happening and you're like, okay, well, they're not dying in this movie because they're in Mad Max Fury Road. So what are they actually doing here? And I do like what they did with certain characters and in certain directions that they went. I did enjoy the story. On the other side, there's some facets to the story that could have been reworked, that could have been redone, that could have maybe be fleshed out a little bit more. There could have been some characters that maybe could have taken a little bit of a backseat and have other characters flourish a little more, and we could have had a little bit more vocal time with certain characters like Furiosa. But I understand she just went through so many traumatic things in her childhood, and she was very focused and hell-bent on revenge and getting to the green place. So I understand why Anya Taylor-Joy's character was so somber and barely spoke anything, but at the same time I kind of wish that she did have a little bit more speaking lines, because Anya Taylor-Joy is a great actress, but she did a great job with what she did. I really enjoy movies like this, post-apocalyptic movies, that this just a barren wasteland of nothingness and just crazy mass mayhem and despair. It's just an insane thing to see, because in the movies they go all out with it, like as if it was real, that's exactly how people would be. It's crazy to see how they just have all these deformed people, and then people giving birth, and it's deformities because everything is just gone to shit, basically. You know, barely any food, barely any water, people living off scraps, people eating people. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. People using certain things as extra body parts because they might have lost a body part. People just barely living but still somehow living, because I guess the will to live in this universe is just wild, how some people live with everything that they have. Like Immortus Joe, the way how he has like a breathing mask and his like bodysuit that keeps him alive. It's wild. So overall, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, great film. Has some issues, absolutely, just like every other film, but this film kept me interested and invested. I never felt like I wanted to fall asleep. I never felt out of it. I never felt that I was ever bored. There were times where some things kind of dragged on. I wasn't really bored, but I was just like, okay, that's cool, but let's move on a little bit, or let's move to something else, or let's keep this going. As I said before, the whole building up momentum and then losing that momentum, that was a main kicker, because a lot of times it would be the acts, like going from one act to the next, it fade to black, and then bam, we come back and we're just like, we could have been in the middle of a firefight. There's hella explosions, body parts flying everywhere, people running and shooting and yelling, and there's craziness, there's hand-to-hand combat. We could have been doing all of that, and then in the next shot, it's like we're just looking over a vast barren desert with one person standing there looking off in the distance. I'm not saying that that's what happens, but I'm just saying that that's a form of a transition that you see in the movie, or all the transitions that you see in the movie, and a lot of the things that happen with the upwards momentum and the killing of the momentum. But other than those things that I mentioned, this movie was great. I had a great time with it. I would definitely go see it again, and I do recommend that people will watch it, because it was a great film to watch. You can definitely feel that this is a 2 hour and 45 or 48 minute movie. You feel every single minute of it because of the constant building of the momentum, and then the killing of the momentum, and the stagnant nature of some of the scenes and things that go on throughout the story. It's not truly a damper on the movie overall. So again, any of the negatives that I have in this review, it's not saying that this movie is bad by any means, just some things that if they were changed or adjusted a little bit would have made the movie that much better, but they don't take away from the movie, if that makes sense. So thank you very much, guys, for joining me for this review. Believe it or not, it took me about like 7 or 8 tries to get this review right, so I was quite frustrated the first few times, and I actually just said, screw it, I'm just not going to do it all together, and then I decided to give it another chance. So thank you guys for joining me for this review. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. And if you've seen this movie, whether you agree or disagree, comment down below. Tell me your thoughts on the movie, and tell me what you thought of this review, if you agree with what I said, or if you disagree, or if you saw other things that could have been better about the movie or worse about the movie, because I had a great time with it. So I hope that you did as well, and that you will if you haven't seen it yet. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it so you can get a notification anytime there's a new video. Thanks again for stopping by, guys. Until the next one.